Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure that folks may continue to trickle in. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is John Hobbs. I direct the day-to-day activities of the Solar and Storage Rebate Program. I've talked with many of you either on the phone or via email over the last year. And we're really pleased as a department to be able to have more money to make available to you for projects. We're holding this Q&A today in order to provide one last opportunity for folks to ask questions of program staff as we move rapidly towards September 27th. And again, for those of you maybe that didn't see I'm assuming everybody got our program announcement, but if you didn't, we are making the first tranche of funding available starting September 27th. $2.5 million for non-income restricted projects and $2.5 million for low-income service providers and low and moderate income residential projects. So we want to make sure all of our contractors have the appropriate information and the best possible chance of success starting September 27th. One of the issues that as an agency we needed to work through in order to put ourselves in a position to be able to administer a relaunch of the additional funding was hiring some new staff to replace the staff that cycled out of service at the end of 2020, and we've done that. And if you've been engaging with the program in terms of asking us questions or calling in, you may have talked to one or both of these folks. But we have Gordon Connis and Jenna Compton, who are both on the call today. We're real happy to have them, and they're excited to administer this program. So in terms of what we're going to be doing today, this is just a Q&A for rules. We are planning on having a full public rulemaking session starting in January of 2022. That's an opportunity for the public to give us their feedback on how the program is going and whether we need to make any kind of amendments or changes to our rules. So if you have great ideas or you have a suggestion for program improvement, we'd love to hear those, but the best venue for that discussion will be our public rulemaking process starting up in early 2022. And the hope is that we sort of limit our discussion today to the Q&A about the rules and how we get you ready for September 27th. So are there any questions before we jump into taking questions? Doesn't sound like it. I'll just say a couple of things, just maybe set the stage. The laptop that I work off from is notoriously stingy with its ability to handle video calls. So I may have to turn my camera off at some point if I get a little bit of laggy. Just please be aware of that. If I'm frozen or my head doesn't move or my mouth won't hear anything from me, that's just my afternoon technical trouble. We do have quite a few folks on the call, so you can simply sort of maybe raise your hand, or if there's a lull in conversation, feel free to just sort of ask your question aloud, or you can feel free to use the chat function. Both Jenna, Gordon will make sure that I'm taking action on questions that come through the chat. And for those of you who don't know or maybe are unfamiliar with the WebEx interface, the chat function is found at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So having said that, please, the floor is yours.
Question.
So this is James Reese-Miller. Can you hear me?
Yes, James.
Yeah. Okay. Got a little list of questions here. For LMI, when is the tax transcript due for option 3? Is that due on Monday or is that due sometime afterwards? Or is that required?
Right, right. So when applying for LMI using option 3, the tax transcript, you're going to want to upload the option 3 document itself and the tax transcript at the time you apply. My understanding is it's taking about a week. There's about a week lag time between when folks make a request to DOR and when they're able to get those documents out to folks. So just be mindful of that. And also be mindful that we have separate pots of money for LMI and non-income restricted projects as well. So so if you were to apply under option 3 and you just upload the form and you don't have the tax transcript, what will happen is either Jordan or Jenna will review your documentation, and if we're missing that transcript itself, they'll mark your request as incomplete. You'll get an incomplete notice and have 30 days to provide the required information to us. So my suggestion is just generally to hold off until you have all the documents at once.
Okay, so assuming this is going to fill out quickly, as it did last year, if it's incomplete, do you lose your place in the queue?
As a practice, and this is consistent with the way we handled it last year, you do not.
Okay.
But again, I'll note too, and I don't mean to be like paternalistic about it, but again, we really encourage folks to upload completed applications. If we run into a scenario in which we feel like we're getting a ton of incomplete applications, or there's sort of a rush to get something in, right? Sort of, I want to just get my foot in the door. We retain the right to maybe revisit how we want to handle that. But for now, no, you don't lose your place in line.
Okay, so since there's only one place to put that document, do you want us to just create a PDF that has the option 3 form and then page 2 is the tax transcript?
Yeah, that's one way you can handle it. I also had a question from a contractor earlier in the week regarding comfort level with the homeowner sort of not turning the tax transcript over to the contractor. If you find yourself in that situation, you can have them email us, just the staff, the transcript. It's helpful, obviously, if we know what project we need to apply that to. So please let us know that information. But again, if you find yourself in that scenario, we certainly can offer you that service. But it's also, I think, important that the homeowner ultimately know that as a public-facing program, any types of documents that they provide to us are subject to public records, and so they should not feel that they're going to be operating under some type of confidentiality. That's just not how the state works.
Okay.
On the website for the transcript took you to a place that actually gave us their tax return. It didn't seem to have an option for just the transcript.
Oh,
Is the tax return suffice?
No, that's we specifically don't want the tax return because the difference between a transcript and a tax return is the transcript redacts their personally identifying information. So it doesn't have their taxpayer ID number.
Yep.
And let's see, so I just opened up the form, get a copy of your prior year's tax return. Okay, so they've changed thank you for bringing that to my attention. So the link hasn't changed, but what it links out to has changed. We'll need to update our records. I'll need to find where the link is. I need to find where at the DOR website you actually get the transcript, and link that appropriately to the form. So that'll be a real priority issue for us. We'll take care of that as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Great. Can I have one more question here? Solar
Yeah.
plus storage, the storage breakout, cost, what are you looking for there? Are you looking for just the batteries? You looking for the batteries plus the upgraded cost of a storage inverter? Is this just data collection? Are you looking for real hard numbers here? It's a little bit vague.
Right. You can, I'm going to open up real quick. That's why I am making sure that I'm referencing what your experience is as a user. Under financials. Yeah. So typically, if you want to lump the storage cost in with your panel cost for the purpose of your contracting, your written contract, that's fine. Ultimately, we do need a total system cost. And we'll need a system cost for the storage component. But I think your question is sort of, is there some type of methodology that we need to see around how you choose to allocate costs for storage?
Yes.
And so there is none. So I'll sort of leave that up to your discretion as in terms of how you want to break that out on in PowerClerk and on your contract.
Okay.
Because I'm imagining that there's probably some type of shared cost in terms of like the labor component.
Yes. And the equipment.
Right. So what I would recommend is obviously break out the equipment. But in terms of, so I think the more discretionary decision will be how you choose to proportion your installation, your labor costs. And that's up to you.
Sure. Okay. I have one more question on LMI with landlord tenant. Basically, the landlord is buying the system, putting it on a duplex that they own, and the tenant qualifies for LMI. Does then the landlord get the benefit of the LMI rebate, or is it just a normal retail because the landlord does not qualify?
Yeah, so for a residential project, the owner, how best to say this? For residential projects, it needs to be owner occupied real property. So the only scenario where we would have a landlord tenant relationship would be if we were dealing with a low income service provider.
Okay. So then that means the tenant would, so the tenant, it wouldn't be eligible for anything in this program, is what you're saying.
Right. Unless the owner could qualify as a low income service provider. But if it's just a single individual, that's unlikely to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Right. Let me go through the chat. What time does PowerClerk open on the 27th? 8 o'clock, start of business for the agency. Can we apply for a client that is not Energy Trust? Yes, absolutely. You certainly can. The program is open to project owners all over the state. When in the application process does the customer get notified by ODOE? We don't directly interface with the customers or your customer, the project owner. As contractors, you are our customers. You are the one receiving the rebate. There may be circumstances in which we feel like we want to do a site visit, for example, prior to issuing a rebate or after issuing a rebate. in those circumstances, we would reach out to the customer just to facilitate that site visit. Typically, we will also CC the contractor. And then we do post rebate, we do some equity surveys about the some of the demographic information regarding the homeowner that we use to just inform general program design and efficacy. So in general, we really don't reach out to your customer unless we're doing a site visit during the life cycle of the actual rebate. Okay, and then are the criteria for LI the same income levels at the Energy Trust? There's solar within reach program. They're not, and I believe solar within reach is 120. I want to say 120% of state median. Our LMI guideline is 100% of state median. Does the OWE rebate need to be shown on the contract cost? It does not. So when you make your initial reservation, the ODOE rebate does not need to be shown on the contract that you submit to us. We do need to see any other utility incentive so that we can calculate the net cost of the system. And when you go to make your actual rebate request, once the project has been completed, you will need to provide an invoice that reflects the ODO rebate, but you don't need to have it on your initial contract. Will we be able to pre-enter applications? Yes, you can pre-enter, if I'm understanding the question, you can pre-enter applications right now. So if you go into PowerClerk, you can create a new reservation and you can pre-fill the reservation forms up until the final drop down, which is calculate incentive and submit. So you can, you can do everything except calculate the incentive and submit. And then the system will auto save your entries and they'll be just in what's known as an unsubmitted status. So if you have several, you can search under unsubmitted and you can see what you have set. So yes, you can preload. Let's see. Can one shop have multiple people inputting applications? You can have multiple PowerClerk users. So, and multiple PowerClerk users could input applications. Are we applying on ETO are we applying on ETO's PowerClerk or ODO's PowerClerk? So you are applying on a separate PowerClerk application that's specific to the ODO program. So as a contractor, you should have if you're an ETO trade ally, you'll have an ETO PowerClerk login and you'll have an ODO PowerClerk login. We're not really at the point where the two PowerClerks talk to each other. Okay, chat's going fast. Let me make sure I'm getting all of. Okay, once a completed application is submitted, how long does it take for ODO to improve an application? So under rule, we review submissions made to PowerClerk in the date, timestamp, order received. So that's a hard question to answer. We have a staff of 2, and their primary responsibility is working PowerClerk. Certainly, once September 27th hits, it takes us roughly 20 minutes if it's a application that's well documented and the folks have had some experience with it to process a reservation request. So if you're 200th in the queue, it could be a while before we're in a position to take action on your request. If you are early in the queue, we'll be able to provide notice to you sort of same day. So a little bit of a dodge on my part, but again, it's largely our ability to respond is largely based on the volume of work that's in the queue and where you sit within the queue. Is the tax transcript from IRS or is it the Oregon State tax transcript? Yes, so it's the state of Oregon tax transcript that you would get from the Department of Revenue. As highlighted sort of earlier, had an earlier question about this. The link on the form that we have on our webpage, Form 3, Option 3 for eligibility, links out. It used to link out to where you would get that tax transcript. Now it actually links out to the tax return. And we're going to have to fix that. Yes, we want the Oregon State tax transcript. When does the incentive selection in PowerClerk go live? It cannot, yeah. So the way that we disabled the ability to make a new reservation is by disabling the incentive selection. So 8 o'clock, September 27th, we will re-enable the incentive selection, which will then allow you to submit requests. Again, you still obviously have the ability to manually calculate your incentive. The methodology, obviously, it's automated in PowerClerk, but it's the exact same algebra that you would use based on the rule. If a utility offers an incentive, but that incentive has run out, does the customer then qualify for the fee? Yes. So if I understand this, let me just make sure I understand this question correctly. So for example, if you have a customer who is in ETO service territory and they've already received maybe the limit that they can receive within a certain calendar period, they would at that point be ineligible for further incentives, so they would qualify for the 50 cents per watt. Matthew, is that the area that you're contemplating?
Yeah, basically like eWeb's incentive is done for the year, and so can they now get 50 cents from Oregon? And it sounds like yes.
Yeah, so we make that determination at the time of review. And so we, as an exercise, we updated our internal database with utility offerings for incentives, but we don't have control over how the utilities, when they offer. And so at the time we get to a request, if something has changed, let us know and we'll take a look at it. Can we submit contracts dated prior to 9/27? Yes, you can. So for folks who were with the program at original launch, statutorily, we could not accept contracts that were dated prior to January 1, 2020. That language is still in effect, but I don't suspect we're going to see anything like that. So certainly you can have contracts dated prior to 9/27. But you need to see the jurisdictional approval being 9/27 or after. Yes, right. So if we ran into a situation where we had a contract that was dated 9/27 or something similar to that, and then we get to the end of the project and you apply for a rebate and the final permit is dated like May of 2020, then our conclusion would be that this was a project that was completed prior to applying for the rebate. So we have to have a very likely, we would have to have a conversation, and very likely you would be deemed ineligible. Let's see. My understanding is that each contractor can submit up to 20 applications in both standard and LMI, assuming there are still funds available when a contract. Assuming there are still funds available, when is a contractor able to submit for another spot? So yes, contractors can have up to 40 outstanding applications, 20 in the low income bucket, we'll call, and 20 in the non-income restricted budget bucket. So if you find yourself in a scenario where maybe you have 20 non-income restricted reservations in the system, your ability to make a new reservation is contingent upon one or more of your existing reservations being converted into a rebate requested status. So we monitor on the basis of your project status. And so if you have 20 projects in the reserved status, that's the sort of key for us to close your ability to make more reservations. Once you make a request for a rebate, that changes the status from your project from reserved to rebate requested. At that point, you can now go ahead and make another reservation request. Okay, do LMI clients count towards our project cap total? They do, but they have their own separate bucket. You have 20 for your LMI clients and 20 for your non-LMI. Do you have a form to share with income guidelines? So yes, so if you are working with a homeowner and they feel that they may qualify as a lower moderate income family, option 3 form, which is the form that we use for using income as the eligibility criteria, on the second page has the 100% Oregon State median income guidelines that have been updated for the most current data available. So if you, for whatever reason, are downloaded maybe the older form and that's what you use when you engage with your customers, just be aware that the income guidelines went up, and the most current version of the form has the most current guidelines. So they're higher now than they were last year. Is it the same Odo Power Clerk from last year, and are you just turning that program back on? Yes, it's the exact same Power Clerk from last year, and we are just re-enabling the ability to make new reservations in the system. In fact, we still have about 20 projects that are still in reservation status that are working their way towards an actual rebate. Can the customer receive both an ETO rebate and an Odo rebate? Absolutely, they can. And in fact, if you have a customer that is in ETO service territory and we don't see an ETO rebate on your contract, we're going to reach out and ask about it. Because again, our assumption and our expectation is that all customers are taking advantage of all available rebates. And we need the utility rebate information to be able to calculate the net cost. Let's see. How often is the available? I missed one. Can we apply for a client that is not Energy Trust, not a Pacific Power user, but lives in Oregon? Yes, absolutely. All clients in Oregon can apply. How often is the available funding updated? Great question. Our goal is to provide you all the best information that we can to allow you to make good business decisions. I can't commit to being able to update like a dashboard on our webpage daily, but our goal is to have some type of dashboard on our webpage that shows folks the available budget left for new reservations that we update on some frequency, hopefully fairly. I mean, it would be great if we could do it at the close of business every day. That would be our goal. I don't know that I can commit to that, but I know that we can get a dashboard with some frequency. Okay, do you anticipate your server being able to handle a high volume of applications on opening day? I think we managed the initial rollout of the program. Now, granted, the amount of money that was available was less, and I presumably we had fewer contractors participating at that time. But ETO is Power Clerk. And my understanding is ETO is within a calendar year has had up to 2,000 applications hit their system. We've had 400 or 500. So I'm not concerned about our system being able to handle the. What is a low-income service provider? So a low-income service provider is a classification of project owner that was established under the original bill, House Bill 2618. That is essentially an entity that provides assistive services for low or moderate income individuals or families. And we further delineated and defined that in rule to essentially be sort of three things. And I'll go through them sort of briefly for you. There's sort of three pathways to becoming deemed eligible as a low-income service provider. One is if you're a developer or owner of a multifamily building and you receive assisted services, you receive like financial assistance under a program administered by the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. Second pathway is if you're a private nonprofit, a community service organization, and your work is primarily oriented around providing assisted services to lower and moderate income individuals. And one way, and that's could be a fairly broad category of organizations. And so we provide some guidance in rule where if, for example, if you can provide documentation that shows that you receive public funding or philanthropic funding specifically to advance a mission that assists low or moderate income income families or individuals, then you're deemed eligible. So we give some examples like health clinics, food banks, homeless shelters, senior citizen centers, community action partnership agencies. These are all examples of sort of the second option for low income service providers. Habitat for Humanity, for example, is an organization that we've approved. If you have, my guidance, to contractors is, if you have a client that you think is eligible, just reach out to me and we'll talk about it and work through making a determination. And then the third pathway is tribal and local government entities that use their public buildings to provide services to lower moderate income individuals or families. And so the city of Eugene is going to do a project on a women's shelter, for example. That type of project would be eligible under option 3. Yep, and then we got a link to the LMI option 3. At what time after submitting can a project be started? So under rule, you cannot start installation until you make application for a reservation. So once you've made application for a reservation, you can begin your project. So as early as September 27th at 8 o'clock, as soon as you hit submit. If a contractor was not eligible to offer the rebate last year, but is eligible now, is there anything we need to do to be ready for the opening date? Sure, yeah. Participate in sort of these sessions where you understand the expectations of the rules. Have your Power Clerk log in. Make sure that you can get into Power Clerk. And if you have some projects that are you have contracted work for, you can go and you can start making entries in Power Clerk right now, just so you familiarize yourself with the system. And I'm assuming sort of that's a scenario under which you haven't used Power Clerk before. Maybe you're ETO Trade ally and you're well versed in using Power Clerk. So those two things, just make sure you understand the rules and make sure that you can access our Power Clerk. Do you have one master Power Clerk account for the office accounting department can monitor? I don't know the answer to that question. So typically we issue a separate Power Clerk login upon request to contractors. I think this question is really, is there, and my understanding of the way that sort of Power Clerk is set up is that the individuals that projects that are entered under a unique Power Clerk ID are only visible to that Power Clerk ID. Is that sort of the question I'm getting? And then the question would be, is there a way to have a login that can see all projects? I'm assuming that's the question. If that is the question, I am not sure of that. I'm not actually sure of that answer. If somebody in chat maybe has some experience, feel free to jump in, but I would have to refer that question to our technical team for an answer. Apologies, I don't know off the top of my head. Is there a shading TSRF minimum to qualify? Yes. So there's I'll read it specifically because I don't want to get the two. There's sort of two options for your TSRF. Let's see. And one's a remote shading basis and one's an on-site evaluation. And I'll just read it to you here. So for on-site shade analysis, it's 75% at all points on the PV array, and for remote shade analysis, it's 80% or greater for the roof plane where the PV array is located. Is payout after is payout after PTO? Is that is payout after ETO? Is that the question? I'm not sure what PTO means.
Permission to operate. So
Yeah.
after
Permission.
TGP
Okay, I got you.
web has been out.
Sure. So the things that when you go ahead and you make your request for rebate, you need to upload, in addition to uploading the attestation form that's required under the bill, the invoice that reflects that the customer received the value of the rebate as a reduction in price. You also need to upload the final jurisdictional approval from generally that's the final electrical field audit. So again, like I don't want to misspeak like a technical term, but if that's what you mean by the permission to operate, then yes, you have to have the final jurisdictional sign off on your project.
That's what I meant. Thank you.
Yep, that's right. Can you put a limit on the number of users for entering data into PowerClerk, especially on opening day? My company has one person doing the input, and I would hate for large companies to have 20 people. That would mean, yeah. So this is a topic that came up during rulemaking and one that we discussed internally, because we also don't want to see scenarios in which people are just enlisting folks to manage a PowerClerk login for the purpose of just jamming as many requests as they can in a small time frame. From a practical standpoint, we do not currently have a limit, but we have not experienced situations in which folks are making requests for more than like 3 PowerClerk logins. But if we do get a scenario in which someone's asking for a significant number, we would have to have some discussion around how we wanted to proceed. Because again, we're a function, we're a function of rule, and right now under the administrative rule, there's nothing that says you can't have. There's nothing that speaks to the number of PowerClerk logins that you have, whether permissively or our ability to restrict. So if we ran into that scenario, we would consider the options available to us. But we are mindful that having an outcome where you have 20 people is not one that we want to see, and it's not one that we've seen so far. Will there be some kind of indication or message when or if the program sells out? Yes, absolutely. We again, we had a question, I think, up channel about our ability to communicate the budget sort of situation to contractors. And it's our clear goal to be able to be proactive about communicating the status of our available rebate budget. Ideally, we would be able to have a dashboarding system on our webpage that we update at the end of the night. I can't commit to that level of technical sophistication, but we will have some dashboarding. We will actively communicate where we are in the process, and we will certainly let you know in advance of running out when we're getting close.
Yeah, John, I guess what I meant was on the 27th, when or if the program sells out, with people who are feverishly trying to enter applications in, is there something that's going to say, hey, listen, don't bother to do the work, it's sold out?
Yeah, right. Yes. So we have an internal process for evaluating the budget. So we're periodically examining our where our the projects that we have allocated and how much money have been allocated to the budget. So how much budget we have available. We do that periodically throughout the day. So we avoid a scenario where we over allocate funding. That's something that's never happened, and it will never happen. So yes, throughout the day, if we have a scenario where due to the volume of requests, we run out of money for, and again, I don't think that's going to happen on day one. I would hope not. We will notify folks. But in terms of are we going to be able to do it through PowerClerk? I would think that our first point of notification would be like an email blast out to our contractor distribution list, letting folks know, and then detailing out what actions we're going to take. Like we wouldn't just unilaterally turn your ability off to make a reservation. I think that would be a little bit awkward. We would give you some noticing and walk through the process. And now that may soon be followed by turning off the ability to make a rebate, but there would be a staggered communication chain to that. Let's see. Okay, can we resubmit previously declined applications? Yes. Yes, you can. I'm presuming that these were declined because of lack of funds. We did decline some because they were projects that were contracted prior to January 1 of 2020. Can you? Okay. The ETO allows for including partial TSRF that qualifies, meaning some panels qualify and some do not, as long as microinverters or optimizers are used, and only the part that qualifies gets the rebate. I thought it sounded like partial will not be allowed for your program, all or nothing. So a strict reading of the rules is that the TSRF is calculated for each PV array. And A and B options, right, for on-site shade analysis, it must be 75% or greater all points on the PV array. That's the requirement. In terms of how the agency chooses to interpret that, I know in the past that we have allowed specific panels to be excluded. So there's been a pro rata of the rebate, and so acting consistent with that on a going forward basis is how we would handle that. Does that make sense? So it sounds like that's similar to how ETO handles it. So in practice, the way that we enforce and interpret this rule is similar to the way the ETO does it. That was a long answer for a simple answer. Is it possible to allow all users to see all projects or just some users to see some projects? Is that the answer? Use the grant access button under settings, James? There was a question earlier upstream. Yeah, okay.
Yes, the
Yeah.
grant access.
Yeah, so there you go. I forget who asked the question upstream is to use the grant access button in your PowerClerk settings. We just had this come up. Each user needs to grant access to other users to see their applications under grant access. Okay, we figured it out. All right. So with TSRF, we can't have partial incentives on qualifying panels with individual power regulators. So so again, just to reiterate this, our pattern in practice and the way we've interpreted our rule is to allow partials, consistent with the way that ETO does it. How long after completion will the contractor receive payment? Great question. When we have an FAQ about this subject on our webpage under contractor resources called About Rebate Payments. And let me just take a little bit, I'll take a second to talk about it because I think this is going to be helpful for folks. It typically takes about 2 weeks for the Department of Administrative Services to issue a payment. So for those that maybe don't know, when we as an agency get a rebate request, we go through our process of approving it, and then we have to make a request to another state agency known as the Department of Administrative Services, and they actually process out payments to vendors of the state. And that process typically takes 2 weeks, and it requires an active W-9 on file. And so if folks as contractors have been paid by the state before, your payment, you're not going to need to provide a W-9, and your payment may come slightly faster in that spectrum of 2 weeks because the Department of Administrative Services doesn't have to go through the process of sort of setting you up as a vendor. You do have the option of signing up for an electronic funds transfer. So in lieu of getting a paper check, which is the 2 week timeline that I'm giving is a paper check basis. You can sign up for electronic funds transfer. You can have an ACH directly deposited into your account. That will cut time off So you could get your payment within a week, for example, if you use EFTs. And we have a link to the accounting system with the state where you can actually, as a vendor, sign up for direct deposit. And that's located in our About Rebates page on our program website. And I encourage folks to sign up because you get your check faster and it's cheaper for the state. So it's a win-win. Do battery-only projects count towards the 20 project limit? So battery-only projects are, this is a common question. The only project types that are eligible are PV systems or PV systems with paired solar. So a standalone battery project, for example, is not eligible for a rebate under statute. Let's see, questions from Q&A. If a customer intends to install both PV and batteries but has less than the required TSRF for the PV array, can they still get the battery system incentive? So we have a it's a five. Is it? Let me just make sure I have this number correctly. There's a certain amount of panel that you have to have in order to get your storage. I think that's the question. It's either 3 or 5. Yeah, it's 5. So when we're talking about a paired solar and storage problem, a paired solar and storage system, the system has to have 1 kilowatt DC of installed solar electric nameplate for every 5 kilowatts of battery storage. And so then with regards to the question, if it has less than the required TSRF for the PV array, can they still get the battery system incentive? So they would have to have at least 1 kilowatt of TSRF eligible panel in their array to be eligible for the battery system incentive. So there's a 1 to 5 ratio. So if you had a 5 kilowatt battery, you would have to have at least a 1 kilowatt system that was eligible for our rebate. Sorry, that took a while for me to really gronk that question. Regarding the location of TSRF requirements, is the measurement supposed to come from the shadiest location of the array, or is an average TSRF acceptable? For example, if one module gets less than the required solar access, but the others in the array qualify, and the average qualifies, does such an array qualify for the PV rebate? So if you, so there's an average of the array, but also when you're loading in PowerClerk, there's an evaluation on a module basis. And so typically we don't run into, so typically we actually know the TSRF on a sort of on a module by module basis. So I'm not sure the shadiest location. I mean, again, this is sort of and I guess I need a little help with the context of this question, maybe.
I think the question was answered already. Sorry, I sent that earlier, but basically it sounds like you'll award a partial, array.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. If the customer has an existing PV array and wants to add batteries and get the battery rebate, do we enter? Yeah, so again, the only eligible systems are paired solar that include storage are paired solar and storage systems. And under statute, that means that it has to be constructed and installed together. So we can't add batteries to an existing array. You said yes to previously denied applications, but that may not be true if those projects were already built. Yes, that's a good, so Tamara, that's a really, really good point. Previously declined applications, obviously welcome to resubmit. Just understand under statute that you can't apply for a rebate if you have already started construction. As far as the battery being paired with the solar, we have a number of contracts that were signed within the last 9 months where they signed up for PV and storage. We installed the storage, but are waiting on the battery, so they are paired on the same contract. But the PVs can they qualify for the storage incentive? So for our purposes, and this is particularly true, it's my understanding, right, that there's a pretty long lead time on a lot of batteries right now. We're not going to come out and like check that you're putting them in like at, you know, on Tuesday, for example. So the expectation really is at from the point in which you've made your request for reservation and you've started installation to when you apply for your rebate, as long as the PV and the storage are installed at the time of the rebate request, our assumption is that they were installed together. So if you have a lag time between when you can physically do the work, that's fine. That is fine. And if you find yourself in a situation where you've reserved.
But John,
Go ahead.
Kathy. But I think he's saying that they have already constructed the solar. Am I misunderstanding the question?
No, that is correct. We've installed the solar, but we've been waiting on the battery. So it's like, can we get the $2,500 storage rebate on the uninstalled battery?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. No, you actually can. And there's some statutory reasons. They actually have to physically be installed for us to be in a position to issue the rebate.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And so I guess what I'm saying is, can we apply for the storage rebate on that battery that has not yet been installed? Then once we install the battery, ask for the $2,500 essentially.
Okay, so I'm understanding. So let me just tackle it from this perspective. So to be able to receive the storage rebate, you have to make a reservation for paired solar and storage. So for example, you couldn't do you couldn't have you couldn't do like, hey, I'm going to get the solar rebate, and then say, well, I'm going to add storage. So you couldn't do that. Is that the scenario that you're contemplating?
No, I mean, it's more these contracts were signed as solar plus storage.
Okay.
We couldn't get our hands on the battery. So we've already installed the PV. We're still waiting on the battery. So it's like, hey, can we get this $2,500 rebate on the battery that we're about to install as soon as they come into stock? They are paired as part of the same project.
Yeah.
But you've already received jurisdictional approval prior to 9/27, so it's already gone through electrical and building finals. So the answer would be no. I mean,
in some cases that's true. In some cases we haven't received permission to operate on the PV.
Well, Tyler, let me ask you this question: Are these projects in our system in our power clerk?
Not in the state rebate power clerk, no.
Okay, so I'm just gonna hypothetically sort of kind of go through maybe some options. So if you find yourself in a scenario in which you have applied for the paired solar and storage rebate, you've been approved. So we're holding your rebate. You install the solar and storage, and then you have maybe a long lead time for the storage. You have a couple of options. So if you were to amend, right, your project to just exclude the storage, you could do that. You could say, you know what, this is just going to be a solar project, and you could apply for a rebate that way, and we could issue the rebate. In that case, going back and then adding storage is something we couldn't do. If you wanted to, if you didn't want to do that, and you just wanted to wait for the storage to be installed, you would just not apply for your final rebate, and you would only apply for your final rebate once the storage had been installed. Because for our purposes, and even if you had two jurisdictional permits, right? One that said, yep, your solar is fine and your storage is fine. As long as, for our purposes, as long as we had the contract that evidenced it was going to be a paired solar and storage project, and you've applied for rebate, and we've got permits and invoices that reflect the installation of a paired solar and storage project, we will be fine. The gap in installation time would not be a barrier to being able to issue your reward.
Okay,
John, but I'm sorry, this is Kathy Conley, Assistant Director for Essential Services. But I do want to clarify that the project cannot have been constructed or begun construction before the 27th of September.
Okay. And those are two different questions and they both got answered. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Tyler. I think I understand. You're really just to like maybe beat this dead horse, right? You're really contemplating a scenario under which you're doing a paired solar and storage project. The solar is done and maybe signed off, and you're just waiting for the batteries.
Correct.
Your question is, in that scenario, can we still get our battery rebate?
Correct.
Yeah, and the answer is like, yes, but you have to apply but for our purposes, you would be needing to apply for the rebate for the solar and the storage at the same time.
And the solar could have not been installed. That's the hang up there. I get it. I think I follow it. Kathy answered the question.
Sure. And we can always talk offline. Okay. Will there be a parent account for the accounting department to oversee the multiple salesmen who each enter a job, or do each salesman have to go and supply the documentation to request a payout? There's some upstream. There is a functionality in PowerClerk to give folks account access to all the various users. I'm not sure how to really answer this particular question. I guess because I don't really have any insight into sort of how you want to operate your business, right? Like as long as if someone has a PowerClerk login and they have the ability to access all the projects, that one individual can go and enter all the documentation for the rebate request. I don't see a problem with that. But again, I think that's might be a better question for like your peers, other contractors that have worked in the system and sort of how they handle navigating PowerClerk. But the electrical and building sign-off still need to be on or after 9. Yeah, right. So you're right.
I was just commenting on his
Right.
battery thing. So
Yep.
we already beat that dead horse.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
Can you please list what you'll have on hand to apply on Monday for non-LMI applications? So you will need a contract. So for non-LMI applications, you will need a contract with your customer. And then in that contract, we'll need to see the system specifications, the total cost, any value of utility incentives that are being received. And then we have some requirements related to warranties on the panels, the workmanship, and the inverters. And so we'd have to see that information in your contract as well. Okay. It's 4:40.
So, John, quick question
Yes.
here from James.
Yep.
That is a little different than last time, what you just said, that the manufacturer's warranties have to be in the contract. I think it's just our warranty in the contract, and then we enter into PowerClerk what the different manufacturers' warranties are.
Yeah, let me just read the rule. Okay, so the equipment purchased for a solar electric system or paired solar and storage system must include a manufacturer's warranty covering the following: the inverters for a minimum of 5 years, the modules for a minimum of 20 years, and then all installations are covered by system workmanship warranty. Yes, so for your panels and inverters, the panels and inverters just have to be covered by a manufacturer's warranty. Yeah,
right.
So
that doesn't have to be in the language of our contract that we submit.
Right. Yeah, and in fact, we can ascertain that information. Thank you, James. That is a good point. It's really
Just making sure.
total system workmanship warranty that you as the contractor is providing would need to be in the contract. Yeah, that's a good point.
Great, thanks.
Will you need CAD as well? We do not require CAD. I know ETO requires some line schematics. We do not. Where in the rules does it say OTA will allow partial TSRF? It does not say that in the rules. That's that is our pattern and practice based on our interpretation of the rule. Kindly remind me the contractor warranty requirements. Sure. So under administrative rule 0030, which is your project eligibility sort of rule block, all installations of solar electric systems or paired solar and storage systems must include a total system workmanship warranty that covers the installation of solar panels, inverters, racking, patented roof protection systems, roof penetration, batteries, electrical and mechanical parts, and wiring for the duration of at least 5 years.
5 years.
Yep, 5 years.
Sorry, just another clarification about the partial array qualifying. Do you want us to enter the whole array information into Power Clerk, or just what would qualify for solar access?
You can do it either way. I've seen it done either way. So if you enter the stuff that doesn't qualify, we'll see that in your reservation request, and we'll have a conversation about it. I think my preference would be if you know that you're going to if you have an array where you know that part of it will not qualify, that you just reach out to us. Just shoot us an email and let us know. We can provide guidance on the best way to proceed. That'll just cut down on back and forth.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And again, like I know there have been several questions on this, but in terms of the 300 plus projects that we've done, I think we've had less than 5 where this has been an issue. So again, like hopefully people do not have significant numbers of projects that they're contemplating now entering. For ETO's Power Clerk, you put in the whole system, and then you have a box that you check and put in the area that actually qualifies as less. Yeah, so that's typically what I see, where people enter in the entire array, and then we sort of at the review level see that certain parts of it don't qualify, or don't 85% typically, and then we have a conversation. But yeah, we can look at the way that we have configured Power Clerk to maybe make some additional clarity around that. We can do that. Can we apply for projects that we've already started the installation? No, you cannot. So you have to, under statute, you can only apply for a rebate. Well, you're only eligible to receive a rebate if you apply prior to starting installation.
John, can I ask a quick question on the ETO incentive for PGE? The rate just dropped to a max of $17.50. In the last couple of weeks, we'd signed some contracts that didn't, anticipate that because we do the site audit and all that other stuff. By the time we get it ready to, all the documentation to Energy Trust, the contract now says something different than what the incentive is. Do we have to amend those contracts, or can we somehow bridge that gap?
Yeah, so if you, I would amend those contracts, because again, we're only able to issue a rebate on the net cost of your system, which is the total cost minus any utility incentive. And so if the utility incentive information is incorrect, our net cost will be incorrect for the purpose of the calculating the rebate.
Okay.
But again, I think that particular issue occurs, the critical timing for that issue is at the point in which you make your request for rebate.
Okay, but that would come out in the on the invoice though.
Yeah. Well, we would see it. Yeah, we would see it on the invoice, right? So you can imagine a scenario, right, where you apply you apply for a reservation, you're getting ETO incentive, and you have the contract, the original contract for work, and then you install, and your installation cycle could, takes you however long it takes you, maybe a couple months. And in the intervening period, the ETO incentive changed. And so we would be in a position, like, we're not going to have you go back and redo your reservation, right? We'll handle it on the rebate end, right? We'll we'll administratively change your net cost, right? The amount of the utility incentive, or if it's a significant change, we could have you do an amendment. But again, these are issues that are occurring at the time you make your final request for rebate, rather than at the reservation stage.
Okay.
What does the invoice need to look like? Can it be a simple version of the contract, or does it need to show more specific information? So the key pieces of information that we need to see on the invoice, right, is we just need to be able to link the invoice to the project that's up for a rebate, right? So project owner, like location, description of the project. We need to have the system costs, and then the amount of the ODO incentive. Does it need to show more specific? Yeah, it can be a much simpler version of the like, we're not expecting to see the contract. I mean, most of the invoices that we see are like a single page, just an itemization of the costs and the sources of funding, right? Like, the customer paid this much, ETO gave you this is the ODO incentive, this is the net. So pretty straightforward. Okay, are there any additional questions or points of discussion? Okay, well, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and conclude our Q&A. Thanks everybody for the good questions. Sounds like there's some action items here for the agency. It sounds like we really need to take action on making sure that we're linking you out to the appropriate tax transcript webpage. So we'll get on that immediately. We're able to record this, so we'll upload it. So if you have colleagues or peers that you think may benefit from this, just let them know we'll have access to this. Hope everyone does well. Feel free to reach out if you have additional questions or comments, or need additional clarification over things we talked about. We look forward to seeing you all on the 27th. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.